The biggest misconception about me, I feel like there's thousands of them. Just because I feel like people in this day and age, in the world of technology and social media, everyone takes everything at face value. They don't really look deeper. They don't listen. They just hear. They just see. So when people go and they find out about me, it's usually through Instagram because that's my biggest platform. And instead of, you know, like reading my captions, going and finding out my story, they just look at my pictures and they're like, oh, she's a hoe. You know, she's not talented. She's just famous because of the way that she looks. And I feel like that's the biggest misconception about me. And it's the most hurtful because growing up, I was not the person I am right now. I was bullied all throughout school. I was an ugly duckling. I was called fat and ugly and terrible. And I grew up with no confidence, and I was the nerd and the outcast in school. So for people to perceive me now in this way of being very dense and very superficial is so crazy and so hurtful, because most of the time I still expect to see that like frumpy teenager that didn't have any friends. So, you know, don't judge a book based off its cover. To be completely honest, I've very rarely encountered situations where I have been compromised with other men in the industry. I actually thought going into it I would, you know, be put in a lot more uncomfortable situations than I have been. But surprisingly, I haven't. And I think it's because when I walk into a meeting or I walk into these rooms full of men, they look at me and my manager and they're like, oh, these two girls, like, oh, this is going to be so easy. Oh, and then we walk in and we kind of like shut shit down because no one really expects these two young, pretty girls to know exactly what the fuck they're talking about and to get the job done. But there have been times where things have gotten uncomfortable and I've been put in a situation where I've been compromised. And I think the most important thing is just that nothing is worth sacrificing, you know, what you stand for. I feel like there's a million ways to get what you want, and you don't have to suck someone's dick to get it. Like, you really, really don't. I feel like you really have to go out of your way to get to the top like that. And I feel like you can't even really succeed in that form anymore. I don't know very many bitches who made it to the top that way. Do you? I haven't had much trouble, but I think that's because me and my manager both are kind of like psycho killers underneath, and no one really fucks with us. I feel like artists these days aren't really given a choice whether or not to be a role model. It's just kind of pressed upon them. When I feel like before it was, oh, you go to Disney Channel when you want your daughters to have a role model, or oh, you know, you look to feminists if you want your teenager to grow up right. But now it's like kids just want social media. They just want fame. They just want all the glamorous things. So whether you're a songwriter or you're a TV show host, whether you're a Vine star, like, if you're in the public eye, you're going to be regarded as someone's idol. It was so crazy for me when people started to say that they looked up to me and they were, you know, following my ways, because it's like, I'm a human. I'm not a robot that's going to make these perfect choices, and I can't tell you how to live your life. And that's why it's so hard when people regard artists or celebrities as idols, because we make mistakes too. So there's this unfair pressure on us to do the right thing always and to make the right choice, and that's not really an actuality. So I feel like for me it's just, I'm doing all I can to be a good role model to these 13-year-olds. It goes without being said that if social media didn't exist and I didn't have that platform, then I wouldn't have had the resources that I've had to get to where I am. So obviously it's a blessing in that sense. But I wish that I would have been born a few decades earlier, and I would have come up in the ages of like Bob Dylan and Tom Waits and been around when music was music, and you had to make records and you had to travel and meet people and grow fans the organic way. Because I feel like there's so much evil in this world, and it's become so much more apparent because social media has made it so. And it sucks because artists, we have to view it every single day. We're forced to. 20 years ago, we didn't have to see all the terrible things that people have to say about us. They existed, but they had to say it to our faces. And now they can hide behind a screen. And I mean, I feel like I have to give social media props because it gave me what I have.
You gotta grind like the boys do. They stay in the studio for days. I do 12-hour blocks in the studio now. Like, you gotta have that hustle.
It was like, all right, I see what you did with this song, but can you do it again? It was like, Can you do it again? Can you, was it a fluke? I'm like, come on, man. He's disrespecting me right now.
So he ate 2 cookies and we couldn't find them. So finally we looking around, we done with the session, we done with the song, we finished, and we go looking for this guy. He's downstairs in the lobby, passed out because he sipped some lean and ate the cookies.
My whole life, basically, I was involved with a church that said you couldn't wear pants, you couldn't wear jewelry, you couldn't listen to music, you couldn't communicate with people that were not in the church. So, like, my life was pretty sheltered.